Pas de soleil, 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 pas de soleil,
Graduates, please stand, face your families and guests, and remove your masks. Please put your masks back on and be seated. Yeah, be seated. Good afternoon, Dr. Krejzarek, Mr. Farrell, Mr. Spate, faculty, staff, my classmates, family, and friends. My name is Mateus Tellini, and I'm honored to welcome you all to the 18th commencement of Stuart Hall High School. Yeah. Today, we celebrate the accomplishments of the graduating class of 2021, and we recognize the work of those who made the past 4 years possible. Parents, thank you for working tirelessly to support our education in formative years. Grandparents, thank you for your guidance and wisdom along the way. We would especially like to applaud your perseverance through the pandemic. Teachers, thank you for believing in us, for always going the extra mile as educators, and for being the first teachers in the city to return to the classroom this past fall. Staff members and administrators, thank you for doing everything humanly possible to get us back to school so we can enjoy our last year of high school together in person on campus. Yeah. In particular, thank you for organizing COVID testing, vaccine distribution, and so much more. Lastly, thank you to the San Francisco Giants organization for having us here today. From the time my classmates and I were 7 years old to 11 years old, the Giants won 3 World Series, bringing so much joy to our generation of Bay Area youth. Unfortunately, the next 6 years, the team honestly didn't accomplish much. They were pretty hard to watch, and most of us became Warriors fans instead. But the Giants are now back on top, and regardless of wins or losses, it is a privilege for us to be able to gather today in such a special stadium. To our guests who may not be familiar with Stuart Hall High School, our community is united through a sense of brotherhood. After 4 years of being in such a small, close-knit environment, it's only natural to consider one's classmates as one's brothers. So to my 54 brothers, thank you for always having each other's backs, and thank you for the lasting bonds we have formed. From the moment we entered the Octavia Street Green Gates our freshman year to now, we have all grown tremendously. We went from getting yelled at by Mr. Guerrero for disrupting chapel our freshman year to realizing that Mr. Guerrero, the head college counselor, is the worst possible person to make enemies with. If you ask any teacher or coach, they will tell you that we are one of the most accomplished graduating classes academically, athletically, and artistically. We are even accomplished in smaller, everyday feats as well. For example, in my junior year biology class, 16-year-old Anto Clark could grow a better beard than our teacher, 30-year-old Dr. Broussard. What really makes our class special is the unique circumstances we were thrown into the past year and a half. For 8 months, from March 2020 to November 2020, most of us did not see each other once in person. However, upon returning to campus, we didn't let the 8-month hiatus affect our relationships with one another. We picked right back up on our friendships through compelling class discussions, shared inside jokes, friendly debates at lunch, and everything in between. The ability to connect with one another so easily, despite not seeing each other for 8 full months, was the ultimate testament to the strength of our class-wide camaraderie. By modeling true brotherhood for the underclassmen, even during a pandemic, we have left our mark on Stuart Hall. At this time, I'd like to introduce the president of Convent and Stuart Hall, Schools of the Sacred Heart, San Francisco, Dr. Anne-Marie Krejcarek. Dr. Krejcarek has been at the helm of the 4 schools for 9 years now. From conceiving and implementing the sophomore year Costa Rica trip to bringing the IB program to our school, her work has enhanced the student experience at Stuart Hall. This year, she worked tirelessly to make Convent and Stuart Hall the first independent school in the city to return to full-time, in-person learning. The class of 2021 cannot be more grateful for Dr. K's efforts in saving our senior year. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Krejcarek.
Thanks for the boost. When I practiced, I couldn't see past the microphone, so want to thank the team for giving me a little height here. It's an honor and a privilege once again to be before you. I'm still feeling the grace of last night, and I hope you found that to be a very special time for your family and graduates for you as well. I thought our speakers were incredible, so insightful, so articulate. Today, maybe I'm going to be a little less serious, and I hope that's all right with you, because an invocation is supposed to invoke something particular to the event or the space you're in. And students, you know that you've been informed and raised with something called the pedagogy of space, how place teaches and how it informs learning. So I thought it made sense today to invoke the teachings of both some famous baseball players as well as the game itself. So as you move from being a high school student to a college student, you're going to be playing a whole new game. Know that all you need already is in your wheelhouse. Always think about inspirational speakers. Always think about inspirational people who have made mistakes, and try not to make them yourselves. Babe Ruth once said, "Never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. That every strike brings you closer to the next home run." And it's hard to beat a person that never gives up. Willie Mays, coming through the Willie Mays gate today, shared that one of the hardest parts of practice is the criticism. You might think the coach has it in for you when they point out your flaws. But from his perspective, he said, if I could see it, I wouldn't be doing it wrong. It isn't hard to be good from time to time, Mays said. What's tough is being good every day. What you're thinking shapes your mind. Your mind makes the biggest difference. So as you go forward, I hope the blessings of the game of baseball remind you to cover all your bases, swing for the fences. Don't forget to touch base with your family and friends often. Step up to the plate, keep your eye on the ball, and remember, sometimes it takes a sacrifice for the team to win. So wherever you go, I hope you find the place you are in a blessing, and you learn from all that it has to offer, because indeed, there is a pedagogy of space. Go in grace. Amen.
I would now like to introduce our head of school, Mr. Tony Farrell. Mr. Farrell is the heart and soul of our community. He knows the name of every student and every alumni. He can retell the exact history of the school's buildings, and he knows every school tradition and its precise origin. Most importantly, he was always looking out for us students. Mr. Farrell is down to earth and relatable. Throughout the years, he has communicated so many valuable life lessons to us through interesting metaphors and analogies. Despite his SI pedigree, Mr. Farrell is a true Stuart Hall Knight. Everything he does is for the benefit of our community. Please join me in a warm welcome for Mr. Farrell.
Thank you, Mateus. It is my pleasure to offer the following recognitions and awards, but first, I have some other acknowledgments for today. I'd like to recognize our grandparents. You have so many incredible stories, and in so many ways, today begins with you. My own grandfather used to work in that fireboat station over on Embarcadero just a few blocks away. I'm sure he couldn't imagine a baseball park here, much less his own grandson speaking to an audience here. Grandparents, I learned about so many of you when your grandsons were writing about you as their main role model in their high school application. Grandparents, please stand so we can recognize your important role in your grandson's life today. Parents, with my own son starting high school next year, I've been paying attention to the best way to be a high school parent. You have shown me the right way to write emails, and occasionally the way not to write emails. And overall, you've been such a wonderful group to learn from and such an important support of your son's experience. Parents, this day is just as much about you. Please stand. Teachers, as has been shared, this faculty in front of you was the only faculty in front of their students in person every on-campus day. It took courage, but it was courage born of love. Faculty, please stand so you can be recognized. One thing I didn't write in, and I'm called to mind just by seeing you, alumni. I know you're not used to a graduation event happening here, but I still say to all our alum, welcome home. Alumni, please stand. I see you, Dante. I see some people out there. Elio, there we go, Sam. And now for our department awards. The faculty recognizes the following students for their outstanding commitment and contribution to specific academic fields over 4 years at Stuart Hall High School by awarding 4-year academic prizes to the following graduates. Please stand to be recognized and remain standing until all of these departmental awards are called. The prize in Religion, Theology, and Spirituality, Nicholas Chupkin. Prize in History, David Francisco Louis Grover. Prize in Mathematics, Sartaj Singh Rajpal. Prize in English, Sartaj Singh Rajpal. It's a nice double play there, right? Math and English, some skills. Prize in Visual Arts, another double play, David Francisco Louis Grover. Prize in Performing Arts, Alexander DiNapoli. Prize in Science, another double, Nicholas Chupkin. Prize in Modern and Classical Language, and my gratitude for giving me a chance to practice before the big moment, Evangelos Stakopoulos Kounalakis. Thank you. The faculty also, you may be seated, thank you guys. The faculty also recognizes the following named award winners. Please come forward to receive your medal when your name is called. Come up here on the dugout. The St. Rose Philippine Duchesne Award. Members of the faculty and graduating class of Stuart Hall High School honor one student who most clearly models the goals and criteria of Schools of the Sacred Heart in his commitment to spiritual, academic, and personal growth. This award is voted upon by seniors and by faculty, and this young man has modeled commitment to growth, commitment to maximum effort, and commitment to our values as a school. This is why he spoke to you all last night at Baccalaureate. I am proud to call forth Iverson D'Angelo Flores to receive the Duchesne Award for the class of 2021. The Janet Erskine Stuart Award. One of the fun elements of Stuart Hall High School is it's a boys' school named for a woman. The faculty and administration of Stuart Hall High School honor a graduate who has modeled the goal of striving for personal growth in the service of the school. Today, we recognize a student who has shown resilience and determination throughout their time at the Hall, bearing the highs and lows with a patient shrug, while positively contributing to our school community each step of the way. I am pleased to recognize Cyrus Gorbani with the Janet Erskine Stuart Award for the class of 2021. The Stuart Hall High School Alumni Award is presented to the graduating senior who best exemplifies the spirit of service as defined in the goals and criteria of a Sacred Heart education. Many of our graduates were exceptional in some way with regard to service, yet this fellow was exceptional in constantly and consistently asking if he could do more. Constant, no, we're good. Yeah, no, thank you. No, I think we're good. The custodial staff knows him. The security staff know him because he asks them what he can do for them. This year, we recognize Nicholas Chupkin with the Alumni Award for Service. The James Rowcliffe Kessler Award, in honor and loving memory of James Rowcliffe Kessler, class of '09, Stuart Hall High School recognizes a graduate who found, developed, and shared his voice in the visual, performing, or written arts. When diagnosed with cancer, James chose to live the final year of his life among us at Stuart Hall. And we watched firsthand as he continued to share his very best with us, even as he suffered and battled his cancer. Our adult community continues to be inspired by a poem James composed in elementary school and that I keep on my bathroom mirror. Be the wind chime. As the wind comes through, James, funny guy. Be the wind chime. Let the wind blow through you. Turn storm into song. Be the wind chime. Let the wind blow through you. Turn storm into song. Today's recipient will be sharing with you how he developed his music later in today's program. And he actually, quite frankly, came to us quite developed in his music. This year's recipient of the James Rowcliffe Kessler Award is Shun Kadaira Lopez. Either way is good. Thank you, Sean. Then there's an important recognition that's not in your program. I did not ask to be a school leader during a pandemic. That just kind of happened. But Mateus Tellini, in the darkest days, did ask to be a school leader. He ran for student body president and served most ably. So Mateus Tellini, here is your medal to represent your leadership in taking on the mantle of leadership during this challenging year. Thank you so much, Mateus.
We will now be hearing from one of our two co-valedictorians. And up first is Vincent Banky. Vincent is by far the most mature person in our class, which is funny because he is only 17 and there are some members of this class who are 19. During our freshman year, when most of us would be playing computer games and scrolling through Instagram during our free periods, Vincent would be reading about politics, talking about upcoming elections, and really doing anything somewhat intelligent. He inspires all of us to be our best selves inside the classroom and beyond. I have no doubt that in 30 years, Vincent will be running our country as president or serving in some other higher office. I'm pleased to invite Vincent Banky to the stage.
Thank you, Mateus. You're too kind. I guess this is where the fun begins. Before I get started, acknowledge what an incredible opportunity it is to be here in Oracle Park today. 3 months ago, we thought we'd be graduating on Zoom. And now look at us. We're in a stadium. I mean, it's pretty cool. Yeah. And even though we're in a stadium, I will promise you that I will not be using this speech as a platform to announce a campaign for higher office. But in recognition of this incredible opportunity to be here today, let's give some quick acknowledgement to Mr. Farrell, Dr. Krejzarek, and everyone who was involved in making this event come together. This fantastic venue. It's really something, so let's give you a round of applause. Thinking about the last 4 years, I was reminded of an observation by the author Pierce Brown, that our lives are nothing but, quote, a shout into the wind. It feels unnecessarily existential, but I find it a useful way of framing what's truly important. After all, everything comes to an end. When the dust is settled today, all we leave behind at Stuart Hall High School is a legacy, our shout. Now, normally, the valedictorian makes a cutesy speech about the class's academic prowess and accomplishments, and I am going to do that. But in the spirit of making the most of my shout into the wind, I'm going to approach it a little differently. So let's start with the question. what is our legacy? What is that common thread we share that will be remembered for years and for decades to come? At this point in writing my speech, I tried to come up with a clever anecdote or transition, but I kept circling back to a single story that I think encapsulates the spirit of our class. This event took place about 2 months into my freshman year. It's a free period, and I was sitting next to a classmate in the Learning Commons. And with apologies to Miss Sell, we were not doing homework, we were having a casual conversation, which happens quite frequently. At this point, the two of us didn't know each other very well. And so I asked my companion the most ubiquitous freshman question there is. Hey man, where'd you go to middle school? So I want you to put yourselves in my shoes here for a moment, because the instant the words were out of my mouth, my companion's eyebrows shot up, and I realized I had made a terrible, terrible mistake. About 5 seconds passed in dead silence. Then, bruh, I went to Stuart Hall with you for 9 years. So my bad memory notwithstanding, I think this encounter really cuts to the heart of what makes this class so special: our individuality. We all come from disparate backgrounds and are formed by different experiences. But the thing is that we don't see those differences. All we see are fascinating, whimsical, individual human beings. We are no longer a collection of adolescent boys from SHB, St. Bridget, St. Philip, St. Stephen, and a dozen other places. We stand here today as true men of the hall. The most incredible part of this is that, rather than trying to force us back into conformity, the very institution of Stuart Hall High School is designed to accentuate that precious spark of individuality, to focus on the passions, goals, and dreams of every single student. We've all benefited from it in some way, be it a change in schedule to support an extracurricular pursuit, to empathy and support during a health crisis. Moreover, as Mr. Farrell alluded, our fantastic faculty and staff come to school every day ready to focus on waking the latent exceptionalism within each of us. And it is precisely this unyielding focus on the individual that has enabled us to find such incredible success, even during, I'll say it, tumultuous and unpredictable times. Yeah, it's true. Look around you. In the class of 2021, every single student is graduating with distinction. Even more impressive, in the class of 2021, every single student is going to an excellent, accredited institution of higher learning. Think about just how few graduating classes can say that of themselves. Just by being here, oh yeah, there we go. I was about to tell you guys to applaud because it is a big deal that this is happening. So despite these great academic achievements, our legacy is so much more than a chart or an average GPA can ever convey. Our legacy is one of community and unity. So, to answer the question from the beginning, it's precisely the lack of a common thread, a profound belief in the power of individual ideas and growth, and a mutual respect for one another's passions that brings us together. And, even more broadly, what we leave behind is a fierce respect and love for one another, with all of our quirks and differences, all of our dreams and aspirations, a brotherhood. 2020 showed us how little regard the world has. It can bring disease, famine, and war. It can bring death. It can change everything just like that. Good times come and go. but our individuality, our memories of our time here, our brotherhood can never be taken away. That is our legacy, and it is something we can never lose. Unity, individuality, brotherhood, that is our shout into the wind. So, my friends, as we now go out into the world, let's make sure our shout is heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. Our second co-valedictorian is Sartaj Rajpal. If I told you Sartaj was going to the college that rhymes with kale, you would think of him as a hardworking, high-achieving scholar. If I told you Sartaj started a nonprofit tutoring business last year, you would think of him as an insanely ambitious, put-together young man. But if all I told you about Sartaj was that he once went a year and a half without cutting his hair, and he spends hours upon hours making rap beats in his parents' basement, you would think I'm talking about a completely different person. As well-rounded and talented as Sartaj is, what's most impressive is how humble he is. When I first heard he had gotten into the college that rhymes with kale, I texted him asking if it were true. He responded by telling me not to spread the news to anyone out of respect for others. This is a person who embodies what it means to be a member of our community. He puts his classmates before himself. It is my pleasure to welcome the Sartaj Rajpal.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, faculty, teachers, parents, brothers. May 29th, 2020, exactly 1 year ago. Think about where you were. What were you doing? What were you feeling? I know I was feeling pretty down because I was sitting at home working on my extended essay. Here are some news headlines from that day. The world is still far from herd immunity for coronavirus. U.S. death toll from coronavirus tops 100,000. Protests continue to rage after death of George Floyd. Now, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer today, but that's pretty depressing. The world felt like it was collapsing. Negativity pervaded the very air we breathed. Like a virus, it infected each and every one of us. But today is May 29th, 2021, and we're here. We made it. And we made it because we had hope. Hope that better days would come, that we would get to see our friends again, that we wouldn't have to attend Zoom class all day, that you guys would forget I wore a tux to freshman orientation. I had an event after, okay? But what is hope? Consider that for a second. Here's what I think. Hope is Dr. Craig Sarek and the administration putting together a plan to provide in-person instruction safely. Hope is Mr. Farrell standing outside, no matter the circumstances, to welcome us to school every day. Hope is all of us as a community working hard to continue some semblance of normalcy during these tough times. Thank you, all of you. Let's make that an acknowledgement. Bishop Desmond Tutu said it best. Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. And we have seen darkness and lived through darkness in the last year. Collectively, we've lost a lot. and we need to recognize that. We've lost friends, family, and time. But today is the day where we see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's a day of celebration. Today, the Stuart Hall class of 2021 has pushed through lockdown, through isolation, through Miss McGarva's math tests. Despite the adversity we've faced, the Brotherhood persevered. We had hope that there would be better days to come, and that hope was a catalyst for our growth. This brings me to my main message today. We can gain more than we lost. For all the misery, death, and destruction COVID-19 brought about, it also helped us move forward as one race, the human race. When all of humanity faces an obstacle, it rises together. We developed a vaccine in a year, an unimaginable feat, as most vaccines take 10 years to produce. We made progress in highlighting the need for racial justice. We realized the importance of spending quality time with loved ones. We gained a new sense of gratitude for the little things. We also all learned things that we wouldn't have given typical circumstances. For example, during quarantine, I learned how to cook food from a bunch of different cuisines. Let me know if you want my carbonara recipe. I taught myself how to produce different genres of music besides hip hop and hit 500 subscribers on YouTube. I took care of my quarantine puppy Katara. Yes, that's an Avatar reference. And I'm sure a lot of you picked up new skills you wouldn't have otherwise. In this way, I gained more than I lost, and I know many of you did as well. When there's hope, there's always a silver lining. So, the past was tough. The present is, well, pretty good, but we're far from normal life because, yep, you guys are still wearing masks, we're all still social distancing, and traveling is still a little more difficult than usual. The future, however, is what we make it. And because the Stuart Hall class of 2021 is hopeful, persevering, and a little stubborn, the future is pretty bright for us, if you ask me. All the chapels and class meetings, all the IB pain, the Costa Rica trip, and much more. We've become men during our time at Stuart Hall. Now, we're off to college, a world of infinite possibility. So seize every opportunity you can, because now you've seen that those opportunities can be taken away in the blink of an eye. Go get that research position. Go play that sport. Take that risk. Use the lessons you've learned from the pandemic and grab life by the horns. Don't sit on the sidelines, because we've been sitting on the sidelines for the last year. When I look around, I see pro athletes, musicians, congressmen, scientists, journalists. I see men of the hall ready to go out and make their mark on the world. Congratulations. Let your hope emit from you like a beacon of light. It will pave the way for your success, force you to persevere, and make you act with purposefulness and empathy. In that way, you will gain more than you will lose every single time. The darkest hours are just before dawn. So embrace the darkness with full knowledge that dawn is ahead. Thank you.
Each year, the graduating class of Stuart Hall has the opportunity to elect a faculty speaker. I'm happy to announce that the class of 2021 has chosen Dr. Michael Buckley as our speaker. When I first met Mr. Buckley, I was a timid little 8th grader. Mr. Buckley was interviewing me for my admission to Stuart Hall, and I've never been more terrified in my life than when I first saw this human Empire State Building towering over me. Mr. Buckley is a true icon in our community. We are all shocked at his ability to work 3 jobs at once, as he is our chair of community life, a history teacher, and the cross-country and track coach. I don't think he ever sleeps because all he does is work toward bettering our experience at Stuart Hall. In particular, he is responsible for pushing the start time of school back an hour to give us teenagers more sleep. We appreciate you, big dog. As long as Mr. Buckley is on campus, the Stuart Hall community will continue to thrive. Today also happens to be Mr. Buckley's birthday. In the words of one faculty member, Mr. Buckley is the shyest birthday boy. Right now, he is probably shaking his head out of embarrassment that I told you all it was his birthday. To aggravate this embarrassment, please join me in singing Happy Birthday to Mr. Buckley as he walks on stage. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mr. Buckley. Happy birthday to you.
So I do, in fact, have a birthday. I did not emerge fully formed. That's not the case. For those of you who are Irish American, today is also John F. Kennedy's birthday. Each year, this is actually my introduction, sorry. I would like to begin by thanking the graduates for choosing me to speak today. I appreciate your trust. Thank you also to all of my colleagues, to the family and friends who have gathered to celebrate these young men. In general, graduations are a formal recognition of academic achievement. It's a public acknowledgement that students have learned up to a certain level and are now qualified to pursue even higher education or perhaps to start a career. With your diploma in hand, you can update your resume to read graduate rather than student. At Convent and Stuart Hall, graduation also marks the completion of a conscious program of character building. The most obvious manifestations might be the campus ministry or community service programs, but the cultivation of character pervades everything we do. All of you were required to pray and to reflect, to do good works for others, to play with sportsmanship, to apologize when you made a mistake. These are common elements of a Catholic education, and I remember them well as a student at my own Catholic high school 30 years ago. However, despite all the time and effort you've invested in this part of your school experience, you're not likely to add it to your resume. You might include a line about an award for service or a leadership role in campus ministry, but only because they fit the paradigm of what a resume is, not necessarily because they represent your character. We take for granted that character development is not a public concern and has little formal value in the marketplace. I am not the first person to point out this discrepancy, which has troubled thinkers for many, many years. In our lifetimes, the political commentator David Brooks has written and spoken at length on the difference between resume and eulogy traits. Basically, he means that the final measure of our impact on the world shouldn't be how far we advance in our careers, but rather how much good we do for others. In Brooks's own words, resume building turns you into a shrewd animal who treats life as a game, and you become a cold, calculating creature who slips into a sort of mediocrity where you realize there's a difference between your desired self and your actual self. Brooks is consciously echoing the Jewish theologian Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, who wrote in the mid-20th century about the struggle within each of us between the drive for public accomplishment and the need for private reflection and personal service. At the dawn of the Renaissance, Catholic philosopher and poet Petrarch once climbed to the summit of Mount Ventoux in southern France. In his own words, he was motivated by nothing but the desire to see its conspicuous height. When he arrived at the summit, he took in the beautiful view and thought he would savor the moment by opening his copy of Augustine's Confessions at random and reading whatever passage appeared on the page. You have to remember, they didn't have a cell phone back then, so I guess he scraped his things together in the morning, keys, Augustine's Confessions, put them in his pocket. By chance, the passage read, "And men go to admire the high mountains, the vast floods of the sea, the huge streams of the rivers, the circumference of the ocean, and the revolutions of the stars, and desert themselves." Petrarch's joy in the beauty of the mountain immediately transformed into self-doubt. He wrote, "Long since I ought to have learned, even from pagan philosophers, that nothing is admirable besides the soul." Indeed, 100 years before Petrarch climbed Mount Ventoux, the Buddhist philosopher Dogen was sharing the same fundamental insight with his students in Japan. You should not be esteemed by others if you have no real inner virtue. People esteem others on the basis of outward appearances without knowing anything about real inner virtue. I admit that Brooks, Soloveitchik, Petrarch, and Dogen are all concerned with slightly different phenomena. But in the end, they are united in their wariness of selfishness and self-regard, whether it arises internally or is encouraged in us from the outside. In many ways, our society seems to be arranged to reward selfishness, perhaps more than in the past. It's hard to imagine that the world of Rabbi Soloveitchik was as busy or acquisitive as ours, let alone the world of Dogen in 13th century Japan. You, our graduates, know the pressure to build a resume quite viscerally and are still caught in its grasp. It's a cliche that young people are self-absorbed, but I'm not convinced that is a natural artifact of growth and development. It's equally possible that young people must be self-absorbed to acquire the qualifications that our society demands of its adult members. I was no better as a young man, nor am I now as a middle-aged one. I've done my fair share of resume building. Like Petrarch, I have climbed mountains simply to do it for my own sense of accomplishment. I have often judged others and sought to be judged myself on outward appearance. And I mean that in the spirit of Dogen, not actual outward appearance. I am not necessarily ashamed to have been an active and enthusiastic participant in times in what passes for a meritocracy. I am proud of many of my accomplishments. I hope that you, our graduates, are also proud of what you have accomplished as students, as athletes, as artists over the last 4 years. However, this is the window dressing, not the foundation of a good life. As the comedian Lily Tomlin once quipped, the trouble with the rat race is that even if you win, you're still a rat. There is great wisdom and humanity in Petrarch and Dogen's admonition to tend to inner virtue. David Brooks is right that at the end of your life, you will be celebrated or not on the basis of your character. Were you decent and honest? Were you courageous? Above all, were you kind? Abraham Joshua Heschel is a celebrated Jewish theologian of the mid-20th century and a civil rights activist who marched alongside Martin Luther King. Rabbi Heschel's most well-known quotation is, "When I was young, I admired clever people. Now that I am old, I admire kind people." Personally, I am trying to be less clever and more kind. If I had to talk to you about public health protocols at some point in the last year, you may not be impressed with the results so far, but it's a work in progress. I encourage all of you to consider seriously how you might be clever, but also kind. Thank you.
Another tradition of this ceremony is an artistic piece offered by students. Sean Lopez on the drums and Ian Kounalakis on the guitar will be performing a piece called Rain by Rob Scallion. Our freshman year, the whole school attended our basketball team's state championship game in Sacramento. After the game, while we waited outside the arena for our buses to pick us up, Sean negotiated with the street drummer and got the whole school amped up as he went crazy on the street performer's drum set. Sean is no stranger to the spotlight and to bringing together the school community through his musical talents. Similarly, Ian started a student band earlier in high school to share his passion for music with his peers, and last night at Baccalaureate Mass, we got a preview of Ian's musical talent. Please join me in a warm welcome for Sean Lopez and Ian Kunalakis. Thank you, Sean and Ian. Now Mr. Farrell will be coming back up to say a few words about our class.
How cool is that? If you know your San Francisco baseball park history, last time you see a couple of guys in suits, kind of floppy hair. It was Candlestick. It was I want to say 66? How close am I? 66? Floppy hair. Say it, Wes Pohl. Hey, Wes Pohl. That was great, you guys. If we can just give them another hand. 65? 69? 66, okay. It was the 60s. They're blurry for a lot of people, it's okay. Thank you both so much, and thank you, Mateus. You've been doing an extraordinary job today. Really appreciate you. It's kind of a lot being MC, so thank you. My dear, dear graduates, we're in a structure that is designed to hold a game you win. James Carsey, NYU professor and author of Finite and Infinite Games, would call baseball a finite game. A finite game is played for the purpose of winning. There's a winner. Your class has been pretty extraordinary at the finite games. You did have the experience of a state championship basketball game as freshmen. A number of you played in an undefeated football season. A hardy group of you won a First Amendment Press Freedom Award for your work with the newspaper. You all earned a college matriculation list that shows a serious commitment to academics and leadership. When there was an achievement to be made, you earned it time and time again. So yes, I'm proud of you. I actually prefer winning. I loved state. I like looking at the Press Freedom Award plaque on my way to my office every day. I really like looking at your college acceptance list. However, what I'm most proud of is your work at this year's senior retreat. Before we all even got to lunch, in this fluorescent lit conference room, there was an energy. I could feel it. It started with some storytelling, and then a brave apology, and then an ask for forgiveness, an expressing of gratitude. And this sterile room was filled with this rich, warm feeling that only amplified when others of you stood up and did the same and held space for listening to each other. This moment, I don't think there's a word for it yet. Dr. Krejcarek has spoken of the groundbreaking work we're trying to do with our school. It's not about males just in the absence of females and vice versa. And obviously, it's not all about co-ed either. You all were in a space during that retreat we don't have a vocabulary for yet. It certainly wasn't the towel-snapping, beer-swilling degradation of the term male bonding that the media perpetuates. There was just a beauty of a group of guys behaving like men. It was a moment that reminded me of a ceremony I participated in last June. There was a paddle-out memorial in Pacifica for George Floyd. And a paddle-out is a recent 20th century invention. It's a floating ceremony that provides a moment for compassion, solidarity, mourning, camaraderie, and introspection while recognizing the life of someone who's passed away. That morning, my buddy Peter and I paddled out on our surfboards and followed this ritual with hundreds of others, holding hands in a floating circle outside the breaking waves. And it closed with the leader of the service inviting us all to recite what I've come to understand is called the Ho'oponopono, a prayer that is intended to bring healing and reconciliation. It involved all of us chanting aloud, "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you." And what took place on your senior retreat with such robust vulnerability was a version of Ho'oponopono for the living. You all came together in such a substantive way, so much so that I was worried, what are we going to do? We still have like half a day of programming. We'd already won retreat. And I recognized when I wrote that line, and as I was telling the story of another win by your class, I could see what a mistake that is. Because the opposite of a finite game, a game you win, is an infinite one. Infinite games exist for the purpose of keeping the game going. What I did as I was writing this story was something I tend to do too often, which is to make something too small. Your development into people who know how to be present for each other and who know how to express what's going on in your hearts in a healthy and healing way. That's a big, long, infinite game, and I was making it too small by just talking about the win. A cool thing about infinite games, according to the game theory of U of Chicago mathematician Robert Axelrod, is that human beings engaged in infinite games, in ongoing, continuing games, tend to cooperate with each other. They tend to create win-win situations and opportunities that lead to developments that outpace the outcomes of your typical win-lose dynamic in basic competition. You all, my dear graduates, you're winning this day, no question in my mind. But to talk out of the other side of my mouth, as I often do, you all can be something truly extraordinary if you can take what you've learned and play a long game that takes care of each other and our communities and our world. No one wins if we make the infinite game of life a finite one. Everyone wins if you continue to discover your God-given gifts and reveal them to each other in a way that transforms our world. This is my reading of the wonderful women, the RSCJ, who are committed to the order that founded our schools. They're committed to discover and reveal the heart of God for the betterment of the world. I believe that your gifts and talents, that's the heart of God that you each carry with you. Mother Janet Erskine Stuart, our namesake, wrote that our education is not meant to turn out the children small and finished, but seriously begun on a wide basis. These men before you are not small, and they're also not finished. I have tremendous faith in the way they are seriously begun in the infinite game of their lives, and I am proud to call their names to the stage as graduates of the Stuart Hall High School class of 2021. Graduates, please stand. Your names are so important. It was my daughter's birthday this week. Thinking of the naming of her, it meant something when she was born. When each of you were born, it meant something. That's the spirit behind the calling of names in the Sacred Heart tradition. And certainly, it's your cue to come up and get your diploma. Maxwell Walter Banks. Monty, kind of start coming over. Vincent Jonathan Benke. Oh, something really cool, by the way. Mr. Spate, our board chair, is giving each of these guys a baseball with Schools of the Sacred Heart on it. The date, Oracle Park. Kind of a nice little party favor for Mr. Buckley's birthday. So, Monty Alexander Busnell. Jackson Charles Cady. Jalen Joshua Chu. Good job, Jack. Love you, buddy. Nicholas Chupkin. Antranig Robert Clark. Noah Tomas Cross. Let me get this timing down. It's going to be okay. There's Noah Tomas Cross, everybody. Good job, Noah. Christopher Patrick Davis. Douglas Arthur Dawkins. Alexander DiNapoli. Oh, you could take your photo, Alex. There you go. No, come back. There we go. That was awesome. That was great. Drew Emerson Iceland. Hayden Joseph Evans. Jake Mackay Falconer. Yeah. Do it again. Give it just one more time. Just here we go. There we go. Okay. Iverson D'Angelo Flores. Gabriel Ethan Fong. Cyrus Joseph Gorbani. David McMillan Hatfield. Samuel Owen Kaplan. Charles Owe Keldson. Eamon Stanislaus Kenny. Evangelos Sokopoulos Kounalakis. Ryan G.Y. Lum. Makana Tyler Levitt. Shun Kadira Lopez. David Francisco Louis Grover. I don't see Maggie. Oh, there's Maggie. Something just kind of cool. I would like to invite former trustee Maggie Mack to the stage. So that she can be part of the diploma conferral for Chase Holly Mack. Brian Hideo Fung Mariama. Colby Augustin Mathis. Jackson Boyd Moore. Luke Covington Moore. That's nice. That is very nice. Henry William Murray. Owen Gregory Odell. Joshua Drew Puccinelli. Sartaj Singh Rajpal. Miles Norman Ranieri. Ethan Tyler Reeder. Zachary Simon Rodriguez. That's a nice look right there. Zachary, that's the nice look, the shoes with I like that. That was very good. Max Julian Sanz Pastor. Nicholas John Robert Schiller. Aiden Michael Settles. Anthony Darrell Sharp. How great is this just to see everyone's teeth? I haven't seen this many teeth in such a long time. It's very nice teeth day, Anthony Darrell Sharp. Lovely. Mark Anthony John Smith. Similarly, exciting opportunity to welcome our former board chair, Mark Tellini, to come to the stage. So that he can be part of the diploma conferral for Mateus Keen Tellini. Wait. Yeah. Wolfgang Dylan Tobiasen. David James Tobin. True Tan Tran. Vasco James Travis. Teva Vincent Ulafatu. I'm also happy to bring to the stage John Villasenor, current trustee, to participate in the conferral for Aiden Villasenor. Thanks, John. Liam Robert Walker. Oliver Denton Whalen. Peter August Wolf. Elijah Benjamin Ituri Siegel. Brandon Gajan Yuan. Brandon over here. There we go. Perfect. Now we're going to ask for some of our audience participation here, that we're going to be looking for our faculty to be giving a blessing to these graduates, led by Dr. Anne-Marie Kreitzarek.
Oh. Thank you. Never be afraid to ask for the assist there. Gentlemen, we're so proud of you. And before we send you off, we want to leave you with a blessing. And so I do invite the faculty to stand, and family and friends, if you would also like to confer this blessing upon them. As a mother who has sent 3 sons off into the world, I know that the space that exists between us right now is not a space that will ever exist again. And what we invoke today, and either invoke this blessing with your hand in the air or your hand on your heart, we want to bless the space that will be between us. We ask that you will be held in safety. We ask that you will be wise. We ask that you will be blessed with strength. We ask you will be blessed with kindness. We ask that you will always be men full of grit and grace. Go with our blessing. Amen.
Something we weren't quite as able to socialize in a time of pandemic when we're not supposed to, that's coming. Just hang on, that's coming. Something we haven't been able to socialize with the concerns about singing is our school song, Cor de Jésus. However, we do have a recorded rendition that we're going to be sharing with you now.
Cœur de Jésus surveille le monde, que l'univers vous soit soumis. En une vous sur notre espoir se fonde. Seigneur, Seigneur, vous l'avez promis, vous l'avez dit,
Mr. Woodard, we got you. Miss Pomerantz, we see you. Parents, distinguished guests, and faculty, Dr. Krejcarek, Mr. Spate, I present to you the Stuart Hall High School class of 2021. There we go. Gentlemen, we will be processing back down through the club level. Parents, we look forward to seeing you out on Willie Mays Plaza. That's where you'll be able to reunite with these lovely and handsome graduates in the class of 2021.